Thank you to all our presenters this evening. They did a great job, and congratulations again to all our Bravo Award winners. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Arturo Vargas is the Executive Director of the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, NALEO, a national membership organization of Latino policymakers. Arturo also serves as Executive Director of the NALEO Educational Fund, an affiliated national nonprofit organization that strengthens American democracy by promoting the full participation of Latinos in civic life. Arturo is a nationally recognized expert in Latino demographic trends, electoral participation, voting rights, the census, and redistricting. His keynote address will speak about the Latino community's growing political influence. Arturo has received Hispanic Magazine's Hispanic Achievement Award for Community Service, the National Federation of Hispanic-Owned Newspapers Leadership Award, the National Association for Bilingual Education President's Award, the City University of New York Civic Leadership Award, Univision's Community Service Corazon Award, and the National School Board Association's Hispanic Caucus Abrazo Award. Very impressive. Please help me welcome Arturo Vargas.
Wow, Oregon, where the Latino community is strong and your white public officials speak really good Spanish. No, really, they do. Let me say it is great to be back in Oregon. It has now become an annual tradition for me to be invited to be part of the events that happen here in Portland with the Latino community. And I think the first time I was here was about 7 years ago, and I've been here every year since as part of the Latino Leadership Program, part of HOLA, and some of the other efforts I've been doing. So it's great to be back home as I look around the room and recognize familiar faces. I want to say thank you to Oscar for the invitation to be here. Oscar, congratulations on your position. I remember being a brand new executive director. I was skinny. I had hair. Good luck with that. I want to say a special thank you to all of you for being here, for the sponsors who have been with the Chamber over the past 20 years and continue to be here, and especially this year, because it is at a time of transition where an institution needs your support more than ever before. So thank you for your support of the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber at this important moment in its history and supporting the leadership of Oscar at this time. I also want to say a special thank you to your governor, Governor Brown. You know, it really is impressive and a sign of respect that you not only were here to address this crowd, but you are still here for the program. There's somebody in Sacramento, in my home state, that could take some tips from you. Shh, don't tell him I said that. This is a very important year for our country, our community, and our organization. 2016. First for my organization of NALEO, the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. It's a membership organization, but also a nonprofit, the NALEO Educational Fund. And our mission is all about increasing the participation of Latinos in American democracy, to make American democracy thrive by ensuring that Latinos fully participate. And that was the vision of our founder, the late Congressman Edward Roybal, the first Latino in modern times elected to Congress from the state of California. He was elected the same year John Kennedy was elected president, and he served until 1993 when he retired from the House of Representatives and rose to be one of the 13 cardinals in the House of Representatives. That means he chaired one of the appropriation subcommittees in the US House, one of the most powerful positions in Washington, D.C. But he took the time to build institutions. And two of the institutions that he helped found 40 years ago were the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and NALEO. And sometimes I think back, as we've been celebrating NALEO's 40th anniversary this year, what would Mr. Roybal say about where we have come in 40 years, given all that 2016 has brought us in this unique election cycle? Well, I don't mean to think for Mr. Roybal what he would have said or would have thought, but I'm going to share you my thoughts. Now, I can't tell you exactly what I think about the men and women running for president of the United States. Believe me, I want to tell you what I think about them. But I can't. I run a nonprofit organization. I'm bound by the rules of the IRS, leading a 501c3 organization. I can't tell you what I think about the candidates, but I can tell you what I think about this political moment. And I need glasses. Okay, I did that. So, 2016. I'm angry this election cycle. And believe me, as a Latino, there is a lot to be angry about. The insults, the lack of respect, the botana camionera phobia. Also, of course, that's the formal term for fear of taco trucks. There is so much to be angry about this year. But I'm not angry about what you think would really be the obvious things. I'm angry because here we are in 2016, and first we're witnessing an attack, an assault on the voting rights of Latinos across the country. 3 years ago, the United States Supreme Court passed a decision in a federal lawsuit brought by the county of Shelby that invalidated the Voting Rights Act, or a portion of it, that required certain districts to receive federal permission before changing any election procedure. And since that decision was passed and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was eviscerated, 19 states have passed laws that in some way make it more difficult for the public to participate. But not just anybody in the public. Make it more difficult for people of color to participate. They have passed laws that otherwise would have required federal permission, but without the Voting Rights Act, they've gone ahead and passed the laws and enacted them to reduce early voting periods, to require voter ID, to make it more difficult to vote by absentee ballot, to make it more difficult to register to vote, to make it more difficult to actually vote because it has allowed administration officials to close polling locations. We just need to look at the fiasco of what happened in the primary of Arizona, who would not have been able to close all of the polling locations it did for its primary had the Voting Rights Act still had its full strength, and people would not have to have waited 10 hours in the desert sun in order to vote. And just today, in the Los Angeles Times, Professor, now this I have to look at, Zoltan Hanjal, a political science professor at the University of California, San Diego, published an article summarizing his findings of what the effect of voter ID laws have been on the American public. And he has found that it has had a direct impact on limiting the ability of voters of color to vote since 2006. And the group that has suffered the most are Latinos. Our voting rights today in 2016 are under attack. Now, gratefully, 2 circuit courts at the federal level have invalidated 2 of these voter ID laws, the one in North Carolina and the one in Texas. Texas, where over 700,000 Latino adult US citizens would have been prevented to vote because they don't have the ID that the state of Texas requires to vote. That law has been invalidated by the Fourth Circuit, but still today, 20% of the United States population lives in a state with a restrictive voting law. And so I asked myself, why now? Why the attack on Latino voting rights? At the same time that we are lamenting the fact that we don't have the kind of voting turnout that we want to see in the Latino community, why the attack on Latino Voting Rights Act? And I can see only one reason for it. It is an effort to slow down the political progress, the impact that Latino voters are indeed having throughout the country. And it's time for us to be angry about that and to say no. You cannot limit and curtail voting in this country in a way that discriminates against Latinos and African Americans. But I'm also angry because we have a political system, not just laws, but a whole system that disenfranchises our community as Latinos. I have been in my job now for 22 years, back when I had hair. Remember that, Oscar? I have been in this job now for 22 years, and one of our goals has been, how do we increase Latino voting turnout? And there's so many things that we have tried over the years. But I have now realized that one of the main problems is the system itself. That it has been set up in a way, not intentionally, but by consequence, to disenfranchise Latinos. First, let me say I accept the premise that voting is a personal responsibility. That all of us who are United States citizens, 18 years of age, and otherwise eligible to vote should exercise that right to vote. I accept that premise. I also understand that there are certain demographic characteristics that are more prevalent in the Latino community that are associated with people not voting. So if you are a renter, you vote less than if you are a homeowner. If you did not graduate from high school, you vote less than if you have a graduate degree or a college degree. If you are below the poverty level, you vote less than if you make $100,000 a year. I get all that. But all of those things are not enough to explain why. This year, there will be 27.3 million Latinos eligible to vote, and yet we at NALEO still project that only 13.1 million Latinos will vote. Now, 13.1 million is a lot. It'll be a historic number. And you will hear from NALEO about how the road to the White House goes through the Latino community and how we will decide the outcome of this election. It's all true. We have the data to prove it. But I also don't, as we say in Spanish, no me dejo engañar. It's not acceptable. It's not good enough that 13.1 million Latinos will vote out of 27.3 million who are eligible to vote. So we have tried it, and I'll let you try to figure out why. What is going on that so many of our members of our potential electorate choose to stay home on election day? So we embarked on research on what we call the great unengaged. That's the half of our potential electorate that consistently, persistently does not vote. And let me tell you, the most important thing that I have learned from that research is that it is not apathy that keeps people from voting. Because I hear this all the time. People will tell me, oh, Arturo, Latinos don't care. That's why they don't vote, because they don't care. Well, let me tell you something. Latinos care. They care about their family. They care about education. They care about the safety of their neighborhoods. They care about their jobs. They care about whether or not their son or daughter will come home from Afghanistan or from a nightclub. Latinos care. The problem is that our system has convinced them that there's no relationship between voting and your daily life. And why is that? It's because of a system that ignores Latinos, and it's happening right now in this election cycle. Because the campaigns and the candidates are only focused on 3 states where Latinos will make the difference statewide: Florida, Colorado, and Nevada. Now, the Clinton campaign has gotten a little giddy recently because they claim to be so far ahead in Colorado and Nevada that now they're actually going to devote resources to North Carolina and Virginia and Texas and Pennsylvania. But let me tell you something. We are not a 3-state community. We're not a 7-state community. We are a 50-state community. We cannot tolerate a system that ignores our community in states like Texas and Florida and New York and California because it's assumed that the outcome is already predetermined, or Oregon. And that's what the system is doing. And even this election cycle, there is a money dump being invested in just those 3 states: Nevada, Colorado, Florida, and maybe some others now, by wealthy donors who are manipulating our community for partisan outcomes. And what do I mean by that? They're dumping all this money in these states. They're riling up our community, telling them, this is the most important election of your lifetime. And this is the time you have to vote, because look at what the stakes are in this election. Well, first of all, let me tell you, we have to stop lying to our community. This isn't the most important election of our lifetime. Every election is important. And as long as we tell people this one time, if you vote this one time, your life is going to change. Well, that's what we said in 2008. That's what we told them in 2012. And that's what we will tell them in 2020 and 2024. Because this money is only being invested for the next November. But this isn't about the next November. This is about the next generation. And that's what we have to do, is to hold accountable this political system and demand that they engage all of our community throughout this country, not just in a few swing states. So what happens with this investment is that you get all these resources put in, in the few months before Election Day, they rile up our voters, they make our voters turn out for the candidate that they want, they get the outcome they want, and then the day after the election, the donors disappear. And there's no infrastructure left behind. We haven't built real political power to hold accountable the very same elected officials we helped elect. So when we lament the fact that 13 million Latinos will vote, but 13 million Latinos won't, we have to look at a system that is actually contributing and developing that reality. So we have a task for us. We have to hold this system accountable and change it. And it's a heavy lift. But unless we are satisfied with incremental gains in our elections, then we're not going to change the trajectory of our community. Now, I don't like being angry. I do angry Mexican really badly. I'm a nice guy. And you know, if I were angry, I wouldn't have devoted my career to the nonprofit sector. I wouldn't have done that as an angry man. Because inherently, in order to work for the nonprofit sector, in order to work for our community, in order to walk in through these doors and sit at these tables tonight, you have to have hope. And isn't that exactly what we are as a community? A community with hope? A community that can have people come from Chihuahua and develop the kind, my parents are from Chihuahua, and establish businesses that contribute to the economy of a state like Oregon. Isn't that what we are about as Latinos? About the future? And that's why, as angry as I am more hopeful. Because I also know we have so much capital and resources at our disposal. We are 55 million Latinos in this country, the second largest population group in the United States. We are 17% of the United States population, but more importantly, we are 25% of America's children. We are the future of the United States. That's why I'm hopeful. And so I believe that 2016 will be a milestone year, because I believe it's going to be one of those moments that we will look back on and say, this was a moment where we accelerated Latino political development. Just like we did in 1994 in California with Proposition 187, just like happened in 2006 with the mass marches and mobilizations that we witnessed around the country. I believe in 2016 we have a moment to accelerate Latino political development because of the circumstances in which we are living. But the challenge that we have is, what are we going to do with that moment? November 8th will be a historic day for the United States, and I dare say for the world, about what happens that day. But the real work is going to start on November 9th, because that's when our future begins. Because I am confident that we as Latino voters will elect the next president of the United States. And we have to be sure that whoever sits in that Oval Office understands that in a way that the previous presidents who have been elected with Latino voters have not. This next presidency has to be different with how they engage our community. I had the opportunity to have a private conversation with the chairman of one of the campaigns. And I expressed to this individual my sentiment that if his candidate is elected, what I want to see is an administration that doesn't just appoint a Latino or two to the cabinet and say, check, we're done. I want to see an administration that understands we are America. We are its future. America needs to embrace Latinos, develop Latinos, because we are the future of this country. And finally, we as Latinos have to accept the responsibility that comes with that. We have to prepare ourselves for the responsibility and the burden of leadership, because it will fall upon us to be leaders, not just of the Latino community, but leaders for everyone. And just as we have legislators who are trying to reverse the progress of Latinos around the country, another reason I have hope, because I also see elected officials from our community who are doing just the opposite. Individuals like the Secretary of State of California, Alex Padilla, the Secretary of State of Rhode Island, Nelly Gorbea, the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania, Pedro Cortés, who are following the lead of Oregon in automatic voter registration, who are trying to expand the franchise and access. People who understand our community are working to expand opportunities. So we have our leaders there, but we need so much more. And that's why you being here tonight is so important. Because you're building an institution here that's going to contribute to the leadership of Oregon, the leadership of our country. 2016 is a pivotal year. And if Mr. Roybal were here, I think if you look at where we have come as a community, he would be in awe of all that we have achieved. He would be in awe that there is a ballroom in the Convention Center of Oregon that is filled to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And then he will look at all that we have to do, and he will say, okay, it's time to get busy.